Good morning, boys and girls, welcome back. We are now about to put the suspension in our race car right here, so we'll come along and have a look here. There's a bit of work we've actually got to do to this before we actually get the suspension in, and I'll explain why. Now, if you see these epoxy looking wheels right here, which hopefully we'll be changing out very soon, I've got to get those off. I've got to clean out the interior. Now, I gave it a bit of a spray yesterday with a pressure washer. I got a lot of dirt out there, but it's still messy, so I'll get some wax and grease remover and spray it down, some degreaser, get it all nice and clean, and then pull the old suspension out. And I'm actually going to paint, make it a little bit neater in between there. So I don't know if you can see, it's pretty gross and filthy in there. So I'll get all that done, and then I'm going to pull the brake calipers off as well and give them a paint while I'm having it out. And I've got some new braided brake lines to put in there as well. So bit to do this this video, and it's not going to get done unless I get started. So I'm going to measure first just to see how much difference the ride height of the car changes, if anything, between the stock and the new Super Shock suspension. And then I'll jack it up, rip it all apart, go get some supplies like some paint. I'm going to get some new banjo bolts, things like that for the brake calipers, and get back to work so we can get the suspension hopefully by the end of today. Which, praying it'll be very easy. We'll see how it goes. Okay, car's on jack stands now. We can start pulling stuff apart. There's a good amount of stuff we actually have to do to this. What I'm probably going to have to do is rip the whole knuckle off, just so we can paint the inner well of the wheel well, get it schmick. Otherwise I'm just going to have stuff hanging out, and I don't have enough jack stands just to support everything, because obviously they're under the car. So what we've got here, obviously we need to get rid of all this stuff here. It's all dirt. It's just an absolute mess in here. The rotors will be getting changed hopefully soon. Hubs, I'll be putting new bearings in. We're going to clean up the calipers. This unit right here will be getting completely replaced with these things right here. So these are the new Super Shock control suspension for the category that this car will be racing in. They're quite a beefy unit, really. They're an inverted strut design, so where your normal suspension would have just a smaller strut up here, this is inverted, so it's a bit stronger, a bit beefier. These come with a 9 kilo spring in the front, and I think a 10 in the rear. Obviously, these are your fronts. You've got your camber adjustment on the top, and then the rears are just your stock normal one at the top, and then down the bottom you can make your camber adjustments in here, which I know a few people have been having some issues with that. There is some solutions, and we do have one of those, and I'll talk about that later on, to try and alleviate the movement in camber in the rear shocks. So these are the new beefy boys that are going in the car. But before we can even think about getting these in, we need to sort this mess out here, because it's an absolute pigsty in there. And once these go in, it'll make a world of difference. I actually forgot to take a measurement from the floor to the top of the wheel well, to the top of the guard. I was in such a rush just to get this done so I can get it all done today that I actually forgot to take a quick measurement. So hopefully you'll be able to see in the video just how much of a difference it makes. Hopefully, we'll see. Okay, that was a bit of a mess around. I finally figured out what we had to do. She's all out. There's a bit to clean up in there, so we'll give that a bit of a spruce up before we paint it. For some of you may have been wondering what I was doing there. I was essentially just putting a bit of a cover over this to try and stop the leakage with the brake fluid, and then eventually I'll just find a spot to stick it up there and tie it up so it kind of drains back down. But this is the stock suspension. As you can see, she's old, she's shagged, she's a bit bigger compared to the one we are going to put in, which is this one here. Compare it to size. As you can see, one's a little bit lower, a little bit shorter, and looks a little bit more beefier. That spring there on the Super Shock is a bit beefier compared to the stock one, and this one here just looks absolutely miserable. So we'll get this one, we'll leave it back over where it was, and we'll get the other side off, and then we'll start to we'll run in town, get some parts and get that taken care of and get back and start painting. Let's do it. All right, bit of a change of clothes, just been in to get some supplies, but these are our the old suspension that's come out of the car. As you can see, that's what your normal strut looks like. Then we go to the Super Shock, which is an inverted strut design. It's a bit of a thicker strut in there, a bit beefier. And you look at them side by side, a bit shorter, and that spring much better. So these are epoxy looking suspension, and struts are getting pulled out of the car, which they already are, and these ones are going in. So front, rear, we'll get them in. And surprisingly, my little nitrile glove finger little caps, I guess you'd call them, are holding up well. Even this side's not too bad. They're just expanding a little bit, but that's okay. We'll get them done. So time to start cleaning, and I'll go change back in some dirtier clothes and get all this stuff up here cleaned up, because it's an absolute mess. Bit of an effort, that one. You should see how much dirt is stuck up underneath this car from when it was a paddock basher up in the Tablelands in Queensland. You'll see some of it still sitting down here, but this is on every corner. Some corners of the car have more than this, but as you can see now, it looks much neater and tidier. I know it's only a spray can job. I'd love to be able to get the car out and professionally spray painted and tidied up, but at the end of the day, it's a track car. It's going to get beaten up. So I just sprayed it with a bit of silver, make it nice and neat. You might have noticed these lines are spray painted. They're sacrificial lines for me at the moment, because at the end of the day, I've got some braided brake lines I'm going to be putting on there. But yeah, that's the front, that's the rear, sorry. And then the front, much the same, much neater and tidier. I didn't worry about in there, but much nicer. And then that's on all four corners now. And then we'll get that. That's just drying now. And then we have these brake calipers to tidy up, which we'll take out the back and give them a good spray paint and some tidy up with some caliper paint and a bit of a wire wheel, and make them nice and neat. So while that is drying, we'll get stuck into these, because I have to bake these in a like a little oven at 93 degrees for an hour. Luckily my mother-in-law gave me a toaster oven, a sacrificial toaster oven. So I will get these painted, cleaned up while this is drying. Then once these wheel wells are dried, then we can stick the suspension up in there, get everything back together. One thing to note too is on these knuckles here, they are looking pretty grotty and a bit gross. But I will be, once I do the brake rotors for this car, you've got to actually pull the whole hub off the knuckle, press it out, and then you can put the brake rotor on and press it all out. So once I do that, I'll get some epoxy paint and some nice black epoxy paint and tidy that up. Same with the arms down here, and pretty much on every corner I'll be doing that and tidying all that up so it's not so gross. So we'll get to the calipers now, tidy them up, and then we'll paint them and get them in an oven for them to cure, and then we'll get the suspension in. Okay, time to get painting. Okay, so bit of a home job right now, but the VHT caliper paint that you use on calipers has to be cured at 93 degrees. Now you can do it by driving your car around and letting the brakes naturally cure it, or you can put it in an oven like this and cure it. And since I won't be driving the car for a while, I thought it's probably best that I cure it in a little toaster oven. And I've seen this done on YouTube and other places, but essentially just set your timer. So I'm just heating it up at the moment. Got it set to 93 degrees, which is what VHT say to cure their paint at for the calipers, and you got to run it for 60 minutes. So it's just in there warming up, and I got the tray over there ready to load it up, and then once they're dry and good to go in, we'll stick them in for an hour and let them run, and we'll go and start putting a suspension in the car. Okay, so while we wait for that paint on the calipers to finish up so we can sort them out, I'm going to replace the rear wheel cylinders on the rear drums. Now eventually we'll come back to doing the actual drum and the shoes itself, but I figure while we've got the we've got to change the brake line to the rear wheel, to the drum, which are these beautiful ones here. So all this stuff here comes from Wayne Milburn at Brakes and More down in Melbourne. And to be perfectly honest, when I looked online and it said, oh, everyone should go Brakes and More, or Wayne does great brake lines, I was like, oh yeah, righto. But these are the rears, and they're absolutely beautiful. The front ones are just as awesome. So top quality gear, and he makes all these in-house. Stocks them on the shelf for this vehicle, for the XL. So putting these on the rear, new rear wheel cylinders will be going in, just as a thing, just safety thing. And we'll put them in now and get them squared away before we put the suspension back in. Oh, the joys of buying $450 pieces of junk that were used as paddock bashers. Might be a reason why this car was relatively cheap. Two issues. I got the braided brake line on the left hand side, but the rear side got a major problem. I don't know if you can see that little issue just there. That is a completely rounded off flare nut on a hard brake line, so I can't even get it undone. So I'm going to have to go and try and get that looked at. I'll just take it somewhere to get it looked at, or get someone to come here, get them to sort that out, because I'm not above my pay grade, that one. And the second thing is, I figured out why the car sounds like a wet fart when it's running. Have a look at this. Hey? What's going on here? It's not even attached to the actual muffler. That I can sort out. That brake line, no chance. So we're going to move on to the suspension now, get that in. Brake calipers are in cooking, and hopefully we'll be able to get things back together relatively soon, because it's getting late in the afternoon and I'm done. That really annoys me. Frustrating. Alright, let's start with the rears. So, these shocks actually come with new nuts on the top, which is perfect, so I'll take those off really quick and then I'll slide it on up gently and see if we can get the holes to match up. Which, alright, let's see how we go here. This might be tough with one person, I think. We might be in. Oh, look at that. Alright, so I don't know how much you guys can see there, but nice red shock. But if you look down here, there's a really fine gap between the shock and the knuckle. Because when Super Shock made these, there's two different sizes apparently of knuckle, this part just here. And so what I've done, Nathan Green from Green Dog Motorsports sent me a set of shims, which by all accounts takes up that space. Look at that, fits in there perfectly. Oop, wrong way. Will fit in there perfectly once I get it all lined up, and will take up that space and help to somewhat stop the camber movement. But I've also got some of these bolts which you can get from Pit Stop Racing here in Townsville, and they've got a website, but two washers either side. They're Nord lock washers, which essentially just lock into place and help to stop the movement of the top slot up here, so for the camber. And then down the bottom we've just got one without Nord lock, because you don't need Nord lock washers down there. So I'll get these in and we'll get the shims in and see how they work out, because I'm pretty keen to see what these shims are like. Let me just jack this up a bit. Oop. Now I'll put the top one on. Now there is some camber washers you can find. Now I'll just get my shim and it'll take up the space right in here. Look at that, hey? Perfect. Alright, let's do this up. Alright, that's all in. In all honesty, this was much quicker than what I initially thought. And the silver looks magical with that black and the red. And then these are our new calipers that we just repainted. I just put a new bleed nipple in there, and then I've got new banjo bolts going in there as well. So the other ones are in the oven, but they look absolutely fantastic. What a transformation. So they look brilliant in here. So the only issue now we've got is the massive amount of toe in we've got since we changed these over. By the way, I mentioned these before. These shims here from xlraceparts.com.au are absolutely the duck's nuts. The gap that sits between the knuckle and the actual strut there, the shock, is taken up by this thing, and it is the perfect size and it absolutely does the job. in filling up. So to Nathan Green and the guys at Green Dog Motorsports and Wenzel Race Prep, well done. Absolutely fantastic job, these things. So if you need, they're about 40 bucks a set, so 10 bucks each corner. But when push comes to shove, these things will make your life easier, so the actual knuckle isn't moving between the mounting points. But yeah, super simple to set up. So even the rears, like once you get the rears in, they're super easy as well. So much nice. So, and I must say, if you do get the chance to do them and you're a little bit taller, you are able to do them one person, because you can reach around and hold the shock underneath and then put the nuts on the top up here. If you're a little bit shorter, you might need 2 people, unless you can figure out a way, but my long arms was able to do it. So we'll pick it up tomorrow. I'll put these calipers back on tomorrow after the other ones have stopped baking, and then yeah, we'll lower it down and see if we can try and get that brake line fixed, because it's kind of really annoyed me now that that's happened. So side note, I just got an email, my roll cage is about to be shipped, so looks like we'll be doing another video very shortly of our actual race car becoming an actual race car with a roll cage. So I'll pick it up tomorrow, and then we'll finish off the video then. All right, it's the next day, guys. I finally got some sort of a sleep. As you can see, got our new Super Shock suspension in. Now it's time to get our brake calipers back together, which they actually came out really well. There's just a little bit here. I think when I put it into cure in the toaster oven, the a bit of brake fluid leaked out of the actual hole there and ate the paint. That's all right, it's on the back side, not too fussed. What I did do too is when I went to, if I figured if I'm going to be doing these, I might as well get some new nipples, some new bleed nipples for them. So I put those in. Got some new banjo bolts as well to go with our braided brake lines from the local brake shop. New copper washers there, and then also we'll be putting some new brake pads in. So Dale at Pit Stop Racing gave me a set of the Brembo brake pads. He's supporting me a bit with his build and with my racing. So if you have any brake needs, go see Dale in terms of pads and rotors. He's got a whole range of XL parts on at Pit Stop Racing, as in pit stop, like a pit stop in a race car. pitstopracing.com.au, and go to the shop section, and there is a plethora of XL race parts up there for people to purchase, and he'll ship those out to you Australia wide, or if you're in Townsville, just buy them online, and then he'll let you know when they come in, when they're actually in stock or when they've arrived, and you can go and pick them up at his Pit Stop karting business. So we're going to get the brakes on, the pads unpacked, get them into the calipers, get them all bolted back up to the car, and then once that's all done, we'll throw the wheels on and actually see what this thing looks like with the new struts in, because I have a funny feeling it may be a little bit lower than what I'm used to, and it might have a bit of that stance boy lifestyle. So we will do that now. That's the front left hand side done. So calipers on, braided brake line. What I'm going to do is actually, again, Dale from Pit Stop Racing put me onto this. If you drill a bigger hole in your with your braided brake lines, it comes with a little bracket. If you drill it out to a 12mm hole, it'll slip over this this bolt here that comes with the shocks, and you just put another nut on there, M12 nut, and then as you turn the steering at full lock, you still got heaps of play up here, so it's not actually stretching the line. Turn it back this way, because over here We've got our new banjo bolt, copper washers, all looking schmick. New grease nipple, oh not grease nipple, bleed nipple, and the new pads are in. So next thing we have to do eventually is rotors, change the bearings in the hub. I'll do that later on when the rotors come in, and all this grotty stuff down here on the knuckle, we'll be painting that in an epoxy paint with a gloss. It'll pretty much look very much similar to the actual strut there from Super Shock. So that's the left hand side done. Now to do the right hand side, and we'll finish it off. But with the painted wheel well and the new Super Shock suspension and the new calipers, brake pads, brake lines, bleed nipple, banjo bolts, this thing should be ready to rip. Okay, this is the right hand side done now, so you can see that we've got our braided brake line in there. Now this fitting here also was rounded off, surprisingly, same as this side but on the rear, but I got a set of vice grips onto that, and it came loose, so it's done back up now. The rear I've still got to get fixed, it's shot. Calipers, brake pads, got your shims there. Alright, we've spoken about that. This is what I did with the brake line. So the bolt's long enough that you can actually put the nylock nut on just there, the first one. It comes with a kit. And then also, if you get another 12mm by 1.5mm thread, or the pitch, that's the thread on the bolt. You can thread it on and then just bolt the actual brake line straight to that, so it keeps it nice and it doesn't hit. There's a heap of space in there. So that's what I've done there. If you're chasing these, you can't get them from just like Bunnings or anything. Bolt Masters has them. I don't know if anyone else has access to Bolt Masters here in Australia, which you may, but $4, I think they're like $4.95 just for two, one for each size. So not that expensive, and then yeah, it's all done. So all these parts, I'll link as many parts as possible in the description of this video for all this stuff, but it is looking much better than when we first started. So time to throw these wheels on and see what it looks like in the ride height now that we've actually put the race suspension in this car. Well, another job done. Got the suspension in, braided brake lines apart from one corner that we still need to fix up. Shims, I actually had to take the shims out of the suspension, but I will be putting them back in because with the stock wheels, they're not wide enough and the offset's not great enough for them to clear the shims. So when I was turning the wheel, I was actually ripping or pushing the shims forward and starting to bend them. So I took those out and we put the stock rims back on, painted the calipers, got all that, painted the wheel wells, got all that taken off. We've now got a massive amount of toe in right there. The other side is much worse than that, so I'll have to get a massive alignment done to it. The roll cage should be here next week, hopefully, so we'll be getting that in soon. And then once that goes in, getting some wheels, some new tyres, exhaust, and we're starting to really progress towards getting this thing on track. So keep updated, subscribe if you haven't, turn on that bell notification so you can keep up to date when I post a video, because hopefully they'll be coming more frequently now. And yeah, it's much lower than what it was before. In fact, if you can see, leaning up against the car right now, it's perfect height just to lean here and relax.
I'm in the big leagues, told her don't miss me, ballin' like Houston.